Chief Keef just made a move nobody expected, and the whole city is talking about it. He linked up with NBA YoungBoy, the one person O Block never wanted to see him standing next to, and now people from his own block are talking about turning their backs on him. OTF members are posting online saying they don't mess with Sosa anymore, and things are starting to look tense from every angle. But here's the part most people don't understand. Keef has been distancing himself from O Block for years, long before this latest link-up ever happened. This moment just exposed everything he walked away from. Today, we're breaking down why he stepped back from the same block that once lifted him up, and how that love shifted into frustration and betrayal over time. Chief Keef used to be the face of O Block, the drill pioneer who put Chicago in the spotlight. But the same people who celebrated him eventually started feeling like he wasn't representing them the way he used to. The situation with NBA YoungBoy didn't create the problem. It revealed the history that was already sitting underneath the surface. To understand how Sosa went from being respected as a hometown icon to being treated like an outsider, we need to go back to the beginning and look at the story nobody breaks down. Back in the early 2000s, Chief Keef was still Keith Cozart, a young dude from Parkway Gardens, now known worldwide as O Block. Back then, Keef was close with King Von, Boss Top, Trey 5, and the rest of the circle. These weren't just music connections. These were people he shared real life with. Same buildings, same struggles, same late nights. Their bond wasn't about industry moves. It was about surviving an environment where loyalty meant everything. Keef was already experimenting with music on a small karaoke setup, while Von was building a reputation in the streets. Boss Top played the role of the older influence everyone respected, and Trey 5 had a name that held weight in the neighborhood. This was before fame, before deals, before big stages. Just a group of young men trying to rise above one of Chicago's toughest areas. They held each other down through shootouts, police raids, and every bit of chaos that came with that lifestyle. When one of them got locked up, the rest would scrape together whatever cash they had to help him out. When somebody needed protection, the whole squad pulled up without hesitation. Keef and King Von had a bond that stood out, even back then. Von was already making noise in the streets, while Keef stayed locked in perfecting his sound. They were always together, young and reckless, moving in ways that would never make it onto a camera. But the loyalty between them was solid. It wasn't just friendship, it was a brotherhood they built through real situations. And that's what made the shift so heavy when things started to change. When Keef dropped I Don't Like in 2012, that moment flipped the entire music scene. The track didn't just go big, it reshaped the direction of drill music. The video racked up millions of views. Kanye West jumped on the remix, and suddenly every major label was chasing down a teenager from Chicago. Once the Interscope deal came through, reportedly worth around $6 million, Keef went from living in the projects to touching money most people never see. But that success came with consequences. Keef's way of moving changed, and that's where tension started creeping in. The first thing he did was leave Chicago and move straight to Los Angeles. And to people from O Block, that meant something. Where they come from, when someone from the block blows up, the expectation is that he brings the entire day one crew with him. It's an unwritten rule that's been understood for generations. But Keef made a decision that would follow him for years. Instead of bringing Von, Boss Top, and the rest of O Block with him, he only took his cousins Tato and Ball Out from Glow Gang. From a business angle, it made sense. Family is family, and Keef probably felt safer trusting blood relatives during a major transition in his life. But from the street angle, people saw it as a major betrayal. The dudes back in O Block started feeling it right away. Here was the same person they protected, supported, and helped rise up, and now it looked like he turned his back on them the second he touched real money. And when he finally stepped into the spotlight, it felt to them like he acted as if they didn't even exist. That's when the resentment started bubbling. People close to the situation say O Block members were expecting Keef to put them on payroll, help them land music deals, or at least bring them out to Los Angeles to be part of his new circle. They thought the success he earned would roll back to the people who held him down before the world knew his name. But Sosa had shifted his whole mindset. He was trying to leave the street life behind, the same world that shaped him and built his image. From a safety standpoint, it made sense. He had just signed a massive deal, and any connection to street activity could have put all of it at risk. But the homies didn't look at it through that lens. To them, it seemed like success had washed his memory clean, like he forgot the block that stood with him before fame ever came into the picture. Then things took a turn that pushed everything past the point of repair. This is the moment that made Sosa step away from O Block entirely. One of the most respected members, Trey 5, got locked up on a heavy case and needed $25,000 for bond. This wasn't some random dude from the neighborhood. Trey 5 was known for being one of O Block's most dedicated members, someone who had put in serious work over the years. The crew did everything they could to raise the money. They were hustling day and night, hitting licks, running around trying to stack whatever they could. But after all that effort, they only managed to pull together about $18,000. They were $7,000 short, and the clock was ticking. That's when they reached out to the one person they believed could solve the problem instantly, Chief Keef. From their perspective, it was supposed to be simple. Sosa was bringing in real money, and $7,000 was nothing compared to the position he was in. Plus, this was for Trey 5, someone who people say helped protect Keith back when he was just another young face on the block. At first, Keith said he would cover it. No issue. The crew felt a wave of relief, thinking their day one was about to prove he was still the same person underneath all the fame. They probably already imagined Trey 5 walking out the doors, talking about how Sosa still held it down despite everything that had changed. But then Keith suddenly disappeared on them. Calls went unanswered. Messages were ignored. It was like he shut the door without a word, leaving them wondering what happened and why he pulled away at the moment they needed him most. Meanwhile, Keef was on Instagram and Twitter showing off his lifestyle, posting pictures of luxury cars, shiny jewelry, and even bragging about buying a four-wheeler for $10,000, which was more than what they needed to get Trey 5 out of jail. To them, it felt like a slap in the face. Here they were trying everything to help their friend, and the one person with real money was brushing them off while flashing his wealth online. That's when the frustration inside O Block turned into something deeper. They felt played, disrespected, abandoned by someone they had once called family. When it became obvious that Keef wasn't going to step in and help, Boss Top, King Von, and other O Block members decided they weren't sitting around waiting anymore. They were done hoping Sosa would act like the person they remembered. They were ready to solve the problem themselves. So they came up with a plan that would completely destroy the relationship forever. They decided they were going to rob Chief Keef. And this wasn't some outside crew or strangers looking for a random score. These were people he grew up with, people who knew his habits, his movements, and where he stayed. They broke into the spot Keef was renting with his manager, and once they got inside, everything escalated fast. What happened next was a full-scale robbery. They grabbed jewelry, designer clothes, shoes, and even small things like deodorant and diapers for his daughter. But the moment that hit the hardest was when Boss Top allegedly snatched Keef's chain off his neck in the middle of the chaos. That wasn't just about taking something valuable. That was a message, a symbol, a way of saying they no longer saw him as someone to respect. But the situation turned even more dangerous. During the robbery, one of the people on Keef's side got shot. Details around the shooting are still unclear, but the fact that shots were fired shows how serious the moment became. This wasn't just a break-in anymore. It was a confrontation that could have ended with someone losing their life. After they finished taking what they came for, they used the stolen money and items to gather the rest of the cash needed to bond out Trey 5. In their minds, they achieved their mission. They got their boy out of jail. But at the same time, they destroyed any chance of fixing things with Keef. The trust was gone. The brotherhood was cracked beyond repair, and there was no path back to what they once had. Reports say Keef's ex-manager called the police during the robbery, but when officers arrived, nobody cooperated. Nobody gave names. Nobody pointed fingers. The street code stayed in place, even while the whole situation left their relationships in pieces. That is the street code. You stay quiet, even when you are the one who got done wrong. But silence does not mean forgiveness. Sosa knew exactly who crossed him, and he was never going to let that memory fade. And the wild part is that the robbery was not even the darkest piece of the whole situation. According to multiple sources and people who have watched Chicago politics for years, King Von was allegedly connected to the end of Keef's cousin Blood Money. That is where everything turns heavier and far more complicated. Blood Money, whose real name was Markel Holmes, was Chief Keef's cousin and part of his Front Street circle. He was tragically slayed in 2014, and ever since then, rumors kept swirling about who might have been involved and what caused it. The official explanation was that it was connected to ongoing conflicts between different factions in Chicago. But the streets pushed a different story. Social media posts, interviews, and local whispers kept bringing King Von's name into the conversation. This is where things get twisted, because there are multiple theories about what might have happened. One theory says Von was retaliating for something Blood Money supposedly did. Another theory, even darker, suggests Von might have done it as a way to hurt Chief Keef directly, and this was happening during the exact period when Keef's relationship with O-Block was falling apart. The timing made everything look even more suspicious. After Blood Money's passing, Von posted messages online that had people raising eyebrows. In one post, he said, "I'm King Von from O-Block. I run shit," which flipped a line from one of Blood Money's songs into something that sounded like a statement of control. People who saw the post at that time felt like the message was too sharp, too targeted, especially considering what had just happened. Things got even stranger when a woman named Kai, who some street rumors claimed was connected to Blood Money's passing, was slayed only days before Von made that post. Some believed Von was celebrating the person who allegedly harmed Blood Money being taken out. Others felt the opposite, thinking Von himself might have had a role in Blood Money's passing, and the post was his way of speaking around it without saying anything directly. J. Hood, someone with ties to the streets who has spoken publicly about Chicago politics in multiple interviews, said that Von and T. Roy were following Boss Top's lead during this period. And when you line up those statements with the timing, the posts, and the tensions already rising between Keef and O-Block, the whole situation looks like a storm that had been building long before anyone noticed. If Boss Top had serious problems with Keef and wanted to send a message, Von and T. Roy would have been the ones to act on it. That is what makes this theory so disturbing. It suggests Von did more than rob Keef. It suggests he was involved in the unaliving of Keef's own family members. That is crossing a line most people in the streets never touch. And it would explain why Keef's resentment toward his former circle runs so deep. And there is one moment that proves Keef was finished with Von and O-Block entirely. When King Von was slayed in Atlanta in November 2020, Chief Keef did not post anything. No tribute, no pictures, no stories, not even a quick rest in peace message. This was someone he grew up with, someone he used to move around with daily, and yet Keef stayed completely silent. That silence told the story. In Chicago culture, especially in the rap scene, when someone from your old circle passes, you acknowledge it publicly. It is almost expected. People share old photos, memories, and stories, even if there were tensions. The fact that Keef said nothing confirmed what many already believed. Their relationship had been broken long before Von lost his life. Things got even clearer when people remembered the music situation. Von had said in interviews that he and Keef recorded tracks together back in the early days, but Keef never released any of those songs. That alone showed how far the divide had grown. Sosa was willing to let solid music sit in a vault rather than help Von get any shine or revenue from their past chemistry. Meanwhile, Chicago artists from all sides were posting tributes. Lil Durk, Polo G, and even people who had once been rivals showed their respect. But Keef stayed quiet. It felt like a silent statement, almost like he was saying he had no emotional connection left, without putting anything into words. It came off cold, but it made the pain behind his anger more understandable. Then everything shifted again in 2024. Chief Keef made a move that shook the entire drill community. He linked up with NBA YoungBoy in the studio and recorded new music. And this was not just another collab for the sake of attention. This was a decision that carried serious political weight in the rap world. For anyone who does not follow the deeper rivalries, this was Sosa working with the biggest enemy of Lil Durk and OTF. The tension between YoungBoy and Durk has been one of the heaviest feuds in recent hip-hop. They have dropped diss songs back and forth for years. Their teams have clashed. Their issues have spilled out into situations that affected real lives. So Keef stepping into the studio with YoungBoy was not random. It was a statement, a sign that whatever was left between him and O-Block was long gone, and he was moving on a path that made it clear he had no ties to his old circle anymore. For Keef to suddenly pop up in the studio with YoungBoy felt like dropping a nuclear bomb right in the middle of Chicago politics. When that studio clip surfaced, showing Keef and YB working side by side and looking completely comfortable, it became clear this was not some quick one-off link-up. These two were building a real connection, and Keef was sending the message that he no longer cared about how Chicago viewed his decisions. From Keef's perspective, the timing could not have been better. He had stayed neutral in the Dirk versus YoungBoy feud for years, probably hoping to avoid getting dragged into another wave of drama. But something shifted, and he decided to finally take a position. And the side he chose was not the one tied to his old Chicago circle. When that studio footage hit social media, OTF members and O-Block affiliates reacted instantly. They went online posting messages that made their stance obvious. They were not rocking with Sosa anymore, period. The tone was direct. If you are standing with YoungBoy, you are standing against us. No middle ground, no handshake behind the scenes, no friendly explanations. Some affiliates posted messages like, "We do not mess with that type of movement," making it clear they felt Keef crossed a line that could not be undone. After years of barely discussing their issues with him publicly, they were now openly cutting him off and speaking with real emotion. And it was not just random people chiming in. These were individuals who actually knew the history between Keef and O-Block. They understood the weight behind every decision, every rumor, every piece of tension. To them, the collaboration with YoungBoy was the final push, the moment that made any chance of reconciliation disappear. Their frustration went deeper than just music. They were upset about what the link-up represented. In their eyes, Keef was choosing to work with someone who had ongoing problems with their circle, someone who dissed their people, someone they viewed as fully aligned with everything they stood against. It was personal, symbolic, and public all at once. But Keef's camp was not about to sit quiet while OTF tried to paint him as disloyal. Glow Gang members started firing back on social media, and their tone was blunt. They made it clear they did not care about OTF's opinions or reactions. One Glow Gang member posted that they were not concerned with anything OTF was dealing with, basically telling them to stay out of Glow Gang business and focus on their own situations. The response was cold and dismissive, showing they were not intimidated in the slightest. Another Glow Gang affiliate added to the tension by joking about the whole situation online, dropping laughing emojis and making it look like OTF was stressing over something harmless. Treating the beef like a joke only made OTF even more frustrated because it showed Glow Gang was not treating their anger with any real seriousness. But the wildest part of Glow Gang's reaction came when one of their members revealed something nobody expected. Keef and YoungBoy didn't just record one track together. They allegedly have 6 more songs sitting in the vault, ready to drop when the time is right. That is not a casual link-up. That is the start of a full partnership, and it looks like things are headed in an even more serious direction. The Glow Gang response made it clear that Keef's camp has been thriving without OTF's support for years. They built their own foundation, made their own money, and moved on their own time. They are not looking for Chicago's approval, and they are not waiting on anybody to validate their success. If anything, they seem to hint that working with YoungBoy might bring more opportunities than anything Keef could gain from reuniting with artists back home. Their reaction also highlighted something important. Glow Gang does not view Keef's decision as betrayal. They see it as business. Keef is making choices that benefit his career, his pockets, and his future. And if the old circle from Chicago does not like how he is moving, that is something they will have to sit with, not him. Then things took another turn when Lul Tim, the man involved in the incident that ended King Von's life, decided to respond on social media. Tim posted content that basically supported Keef's decision to link with YoungBoy, and the meaning behind that is heavy. For the person tied to Von's passing to publicly co-sign Keef teaming up with YoungBoy adds another layer to a situation that was already complicated. Tim stepping into the conversation showed just how tangled the politics really are. This is not just about 2 rappers making music. This is about overlapping histories, quiet tensions, and old wounds that never healed. His support could mean a few different things. Maybe Tim knows something about the past between Keef and Vaughn that makes Keef's actions feel justified in his eyes. Or maybe Tim is stirring the pot, trying to keep the conflict alive. Either way, when the person connected to Vaughn's passing publicly supports your move against Vaughn's crew, it sends a message to anyone watching. It looks like Tim is saying he understands why Keef would distance himself from his former circle. And when outsiders pick up on that energy, it shows just how much deeper the situation runs beneath the surface. To understand why all of this is hitting so hard, you have to look at the street politics that have been building for years. This is not simply a business decision or an argument over music. This is about loyalty, respect, and codes that shaped entire neighborhoods. It is about long histories that never fully ended, even when the rest of the world moved on. From Chief Keef's point of view, he feels completely justified moving however he chooses. In his eyes, his own people robbed him, allegedly took the life of his cousin, and never showed him the loyalty he earned. He helped put O-Block on the global map, made their name known everywhere, and in return he was met with betrayal, chaos, and violence. So to him, there is no reason to look back or repair anything. But from O-Block's perspective, the story looks different. They feel like Keef walked away at the moment they needed him the most. He got rich, left the environment that shaped him, and only helped his blood relatives while the people who stood with him day after day were still struggling. When they needed bond money for someone they considered a solid member of the circle, Keef went silent, even though he had more than enough resources to step in. The truth probably sits somewhere between both sides. Keef likely did get caught up in his success and pulled away from the lifestyle he was raised in, trying to protect himself and his career. But O-Block likely expected more from him than he could realistically give, believing he owed them a level of sacrifice that would have put his entire future at risk. The dangerous part of this situation is that both sides feel completely right. Keef believes he was betrayed first, so any decision he makes now is just him protecting himself. O-Block believes Keef abandoned them first, so they saw their actions as justified. When both sides are convinced they were wrong before anything else happened, the conflict becomes almost impossible to resolve. This tension between Keef and his old circle also creates major waves in the music world, especially in Chicago's drill scene. Chief Keef is widely recognized as the godfather of drill, the person who shaped the entire sound and culture that made Chicago famous across the world. So for him to turn away from Chicago and collaborate with their rivals marks a major shift in the drill landscape. It shows that not even the biggest names in the culture are safe from the heavy street politics that split communities. And the fact that Keef is now working closely with NBA YoungBoy gives YB even more weight in his rivalry with Chicago artists. Having the creator of the drill movement standing next to you adds a level of credibility that is hard to ignore. It likely gives YoungBoy even more confidence to keep pushing his conflicts with Dirk and OTF. For Chicago artists, this creates a complicated decision. Do they continue honoring Keef as the foundation of their sound, or do they distance themselves because he aligned with someone they consider an enemy? Most will probably stick by their current crews, because in Chicago, loyalty to the people you stand with today often matters more than loyalty to history. Out of respect for Keef's legacy, people understand why this situation is getting so much attention. But here is why the moment is dangerous and why it could move far beyond social media arguments. This is not a regular rap drama. This is tied to real street politics that have already taken lives. In Chicago, when certain lines get crossed, retaliation can follow fast, and it often has nothing to do with music. The fact that OTF members are openly cutting ties with Keef shows the weight behind this situation. These are not hurt feelings over a business move. This is about long-standing codes based on loyalty, respect, and survival. Linking with your block's biggest rival is considered one of the deepest betrayals in that world. But Keef seems completely past worrying about those consequences. He has been living in Los Angeles for years with security around him, moving on his own schedule. He has probably decided he is protected enough to make whatever choices he wants, even if people back home do not like them. To him, the risk is worth it, and he is not letting old conflicts dictate his future. The real question now is whether this stays on social media and in diss tracks, or whether it spills into something more serious. With Chicago's drill history and with the personal history involved, there is always a real possibility that things could go further than words. That is what has a lot of people watching closely. What makes the situation even more complicated is that this beef is connected to several other conflicts that have been building for years. You have the tension between Keef and O-Block, the ongoing rivalry between Lil Durk and YoungBoy, and the violence tied to different Chicago factions that never fully stopped. When these conflicts overlap, the risk of things escalating becomes even higher. At this point, Keef's decision to link with NBA YoungBoy looks like the final break from his Chicago foundation. After years of problems, silence, betrayal, and unresolved issues, he has made it clear where he stands. And it is not with the people who helped shape his rise in the beginning. This is not about one studio session or one song. This is the result of years of resentment finally reaching the surface. Keef is showing the world he does not need approval from O-Block. He does not need support from OTF. And he is willing to work with the person they view as their biggest rival to make that point clear. The streets are watching, the fans are split, and this situation is nowhere near finished. With talk of 6 more songs sitting in the vault, Keef and YoungBoy are only at the beginning of whatever partnership they are building. Meanwhile, OTF and O-Block are making it clear that this level of betrayal is something they are not willing to forgive. The divide is set, and both sides are standing firm. What makes the whole situation sad is how clearly it shows the damage that street politics can cause in hip-hop. Chief Keef could have been a unifying force for Chicago, someone who helped bridge the gaps between different parts of the city. Instead, he has become someone viewed as an outsider by the same neighborhood that once lifted him up. The streets that celebrated him are now pushing him away, and there may be no realistic way to repair that bond. For the younger generation of artists coming out of Chicago, this entire conflict serves as a warning. It shows the weight of loyalty and the fallout that comes when people feel betrayed. One decision can shift an entire community. One missed expectation can turn close bonds into long-lasting resentment. And once those lines are crossed, they rarely get cleaned up. The larger hip-hop world is watching too, because this situation reflects deeper themes about what it means to stay authentic, stay loyal, and stay connected to your roots. Keef choosing his own interests over the expectations of his hometown will probably shape how future artists handle similar choices. Some might follow his route, others might be more cautious. But either way, the blueprint has changed. One thing is clear, the Chicago drill scene will not go back to what it was. The person once seen as the king of O-Block is now treated like an enemy of the same block. And in a city where loyalty holds real weight, that is a line that rarely gets undone. As more music drops and more alliances form, the situation is only going to grow more intense. With so many layers involved, from personal betrayal to street politics to industry competition and regional pride, this conflict is set to generate drama for a long time. And every new move is going to push the divide even deeper. Every new song, every post, every appearance from these camps is going to be watched closely, with people trying to figure out whether things are getting better or getting worse. But looking at the history between everyone involved, reconciliation seems unrealistic. Too much damage has been done. Too many moments crossed a point of no return, and the pride on both sides is far too heavy for anyone to back away now. We will be here breaking down every shift as it unfolds, because this story is nowhere near finished. Chief Keef just sparked a situation that has been building for more than a decade, and now everyone is waiting to see what comes next in Chicago. These kinds of conflicts do not disappear quietly. They shape careers, break down friendships, and sometimes lead to consequences nobody can take back. The real question is how far this will go and whether anyone can step in before it gets pushed past a limit that cannot be undone. But based on the history of Chicago drill culture and based on how personal this has become, it looks like we are only seeing the beginning of something that could stretch on for years. So stay tuned, because this story is only getting deeper from here, and we will be breaking down every twist as it comes. Drop a comment below, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and we will see you on the next one.